There is also a tendency in South Africa to think that, especially since within the Reformed, they are trying to gain a foothold in South Africa, to gain platforms, huge platforms, and influence the society with their Reformed theology. And even right now, they are going to be holding, many conferences because it's a Reformation month, and many of them do not understand, much of the history of the Reformed within the context of South Africa. The circles which are known as Reformed were circles that promoted theologies of oppression in South Africa for the most part since 1652 or the late 1600s, when the Dutch Reformed Church, Jan van Riebeeck and others came on the scene. They've been promoting theologies of oppression, the biggest of that being, the Afrikaner Christian nationalism, which believed in, superior inferior races, and these superior inferior races being God-given, and therefore cannot, meaning that they could not be changed. And in this superior inferior, people in the world, the whites were at the top, blacks were at the bottom. And this pseudo-theological view, went on, to sort of create certain pseudo-biological views about blacks being biologically inferior to whites, white skin being associated with all that which is, of high intelligence and all that. And then, that also went to how they organized their society, because they had this view that blacks are inferior, and therefore a society that they created was a society which was based on their oppression. And so you had all of this, taking place. And then a theology was sort of the guiding thing behind all of this. They always clothed whatever they were doing in the name of God, and this was largely within the Reformed circles. And even within Methodist, Anglicanism, Roman Catholicism, you had this type of views, viewing people in this way and using God to justify, those types of thinking. And then you had, in the 60s, especially late 60s, you had black consciousness, which was driven by men such as your Bantu Biko, Onkgopotsetiro, Merampele, and others, very influential people, who then, built a philosophy of reading black people all the dehumanization, degradation, and inferiority complexes that had been put there by the racist white ruling class. And they utilize a certain theology to then, cover the entire philosophy, and that was black liberation theology, which came from James Cone in America. And there's a tendency within these so-called reform circles, who have a dark history here in South Africa, to quickly dismiss black liberation theology as being heretical, satanic, and all this type of thing. They don't even want to give it a chance, to explain certain things. They don't want even to pick the good things, the many good things that you find in black liberation theology. They just dismiss it and push it aside. So Bantu Biko utilize black liberation theology and used it to then restore black dignity, and also to make sure that and also to help black people into starting to making sure that they fight for their own liberation. And therefore, if you look at the circles that embrace black liberation theology, these were circles that also embrace liberation. They were anti-racist, anti-imperialist, anti-white supremacist, and for justice. The circles that embraced that, the circles were conservatives and reformed and all of that. They were the ones who were siding with white supremacy. They were on the side of the wrong. So between these two theologies, one affirming so-called hierarchies that were created by God, in which at the top of these hierarchies was the white race, and therefore that moved to biology, sociology, and economy and politics, clothing all of that in the name of God, in the name of Christian theology. And then you have black liberation theology on the other side, which was anti-racist, anti-injustice, anti-white supremacy, fighting for equality, fighting for dignity, and envisioning a world where people are going to live together, not in these domineering, oppressive type of system, and then the fruits of what black liberation theology produced was freedom, and democracy in South Africa. The fruits of what this reformed theology, which was promoted among these conservative circles in South Africa for centuries, what it produced was oppression, destruction, chaos, and anarchy in the society. So it was a theology of oppression. Black liberation theology was a theology of liberation, and therefore this needs to be separated, and people need to be careful not to fall in this easy dismissive attitude that many within the Reformed have of black liberation theology, because it really did a lot for the context of South Africa in terms of helping us to achieve our liberation, democracy, and independence. I hope this video blesses you. Thank you very much. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.